Coffee is a big part of my day. Not only does it help me get through the morning, but I just really love good coffee. Trade is a subscription service that brings great coffee from indie roasters all over the country right to your door. Tell Trade what you like typically. Single origins, blends, dark or light roasts, or even how you make your coffee, and they'll recommend the right beans for you. Or you can choose from over 450 different coffees and build your own queue. Then you select how often you'd like your coffee delivered, whether that be 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. Shipping's always free. If you find that you have too many beans and you need to skip a delivery, you can do that. Running out sooner than you think and need an order sooner, you can do that as well. No charge. I've done it myself a couple times. It's great to know that I have that flexibility. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade and get started with Trade and enjoy 30% off your first month. That's unitedwedrink.com/trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I am starting to get my belly ready for some Thanksgiving stuff. Get the belt stretched out a little bit. No, the pants stretched out. Don't stretch the belt, then the belt breaks. I need the belt to hold up the pants. Yeah. So Thanksgiving's coming up. Excited about that. Kevin, Tim,
first of all, you come here. Our listeners, the four of them, come here for this kind of there's a PSA that we talk a lot about clothing and garments and the best way to use them. I think it's a biting social commentary that people have come to expect. Yes, I am here. Thank you, Mike, for that wonderful introduction. Tim, hello. I do want to mention that for many years, my family and I have been threatening to do a non-traditional Thanksgiving because I'm really interested in doing different foods from around the globe, and we love to cook cuisine from all over the place, and doing something like that. But every year we have family members that will mutiny if we do anything but the exact things that we are quote unquote supposed to do. So yet again, we are just doing turkey and stuff. And listen, I love those foods. I adore those foods. The only time of year you eat them. But I feel like it just have to be me and Allie and Brad and Christina, my brother and sister-in-law. And if we have those people, we can do what we want. But the second you involve anybody else, it's like, you're not going to have sweet potato casserole. You motherfuckers, we're not coming.
There was one spoonful to the sweet potato casserole last year. One spoonful. We're not making it again.
It wasn't even eaten. It was just put on a plate to be polite.
Yeah, the one person who guiltily filled up their plate with things that they don't even like. We're not hosting. I'm glad that we're not hosting this year. We've done the last 2 years, so I wanted a break. I'm glad that I get to have a break.
Tim, what dish from Thanksgiving would you 86 if you had your druthers?
It probably would be sweet potatoes. I'd probably get rid of. I think it's overrated. I don't know. I'm gonna also say something controversial. I'd be fine with 86 in turkey.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of other options.
I mean, you said we only eat these one time a year, and you're right. Turkey is just not and I get it. Part of it is because if you're gonna buy a whole bird, you better be feeding a lot of people. But to me, I've always been more of a ham kind of guy. This year, Lily and I are skewing it all, so we're doing lasagna. So
Now that's
as
delicious.
as the pilgrims ate.
You know,
So
Allie and I were talking like a few months ago about because we were under the assumption that we were probably just going to be hosting Thanksgiving for the rest of our lives. And Allie was saying like, you know what, we should do turkey and then like a baked pasta dish. And I was like, interesting. Like, so we were going back and forth on like ziti or lasagna as a baked pasta dish, and I'm going to tell her that tomorrow, and she's going to be so like thrilled to hear that someone else is doing like a baked pasta dish for Thanksgiving.
yeah, I remember when I was a, a young lad. I remember one year my neighbors told me that they had barbecue for Thanksgiving, and I remember being so insanely jealous that they got to do barbecue for Thanksgiving, and really wishing that we would do that instead of all the traditional stuff. So, uh, yeah, I'm down for a non-traditional Thanksgiving.
And I'm with you on axing the sweet potatoes. Like I like sweet potatoes every once in a while, but I don't know. Especially if it's the casserole thing, like, and you put the marshmallows, like that's
You
Yeah,
don't
over
have.
yeah, I
board.
don't
Why
need
are you
that.
adding sugar to the sweet potatoes? It's in the name. Like if you added some marshmallows to another savory dish, maybe it would work. But there's so many great ways to cook sweet potatoes, and adding like roasted pecans and stuff. There's really good things there, but no, they're just not good. It's I also the green bean casserole rarely is rarely good.
Yeah,
Every now and
I
then
love
someone
green
Yeah,
beans.
oh, me too. But if you like, char green beans at a high heat in a cast iron skillet with like some flaked almonds and like lemon, it's one of the most delicious things you can have. But with like cream of mushroom Campbell's soup and cook them to
and
shit.
onion
Yeah.
and onion straws.
And cook
Yeah.
them to mush and then go, this is delicious. No one's ever said that. You just do it because you think you have to.
Fight us in the comments. Kevin, what are you drinking?
That's a great question. Like, I am drinking my last can of Festina Pesh. I always just say Festina Peach because I'm lame. But yeah, this was the last can I picked up of a 6-pack. I picked up probably a couple months ago. I did it for Old Favorite Friday, and this is just a great beer. And every time I drink this beer, I think of Phil Palmisano because this is a beer that he loved back in the day and tried to replicate. I believe there's an adorable story about him trying to replicate this beer in his bathtub with a homebrew batch that did not go well. But I might be conflating multiple different stories. But this is a
I thought
delicious
it was
beer.
his backyard.
Well,
I
I'm
thought he
just
put it out on like into the Florida heat to ferment.
I just said
Uh,
bathtub because that's what I think of, someone keeping stuff in their bathtub when they're home brewing. But yeah, and this thing,
Old moonshiner.
I'm too old to actually remember the story. I'm sure because I feel like it was hilarious back in the day, but I don't even know any of the details anymore. But anyway, it gives me some nostalgia for this beer and some nostalgia for Phil, which is a lovely thing to drink this summer release as it starts to turn 70 here in Florida.
Tim, what are you having?
That is a terrible question. No, I just, Kevin said it was. Oh, that's a wonderful question. Like it's not the question we ask every single thing. Like it was a brand new thing.
And
Oh,
every
I hadn't thought about that.
And every time it's a wonderful question. I'm just pointing it out because no one ever does.
It is because it is an honor and a privilege. I am drinking Shell's. They're this year's Snowstorm. So they do a winter release every year called Snowstorm, and it's a rotating thing, right? And so this year is a toasty winter lager, and I am enjoying it quite nicely. I don't go to the liquor store that often, and like literally, I go to the liquor store to buy stuff for the podcast. That's basically it. And so I don't know how long it's been out, but seeing it on the shelves made me pretty happy. Even though I'm not ready for winter or a snowstorm, we have had snow already in Minnesota, and then followed immediately by 70-degree weather. So, uh, you know, Mother Nature just likes to say, "Hey, fuck you," and whatever you're thinking is going to happen. The other day we were supposed to have snow, and then I woke up and it was 60. So who knows? But this is a nice, malty, perfectly seasonal, toasty winter lager, and I'm quite pleased with it.
Do they do a different style every year for
Every
that
year
beer?
it's every year it's a different
Oh,
style.
cool.
Every year it's something completely different, which is so funny because I remember back in the day, Dave Berg used to always talk about the number of people that like it's not as good as last year. Well, it's a different beer.
Yeah, this black IPA not nearly as good as the Winter Warmer last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in keeping personality celebration for me, uh,
Haven't picked any
so
up yet this year.
almost done with my first 12 pack that I got last week. Gonna have to go buy some more this weekend. Yeah, just the I think we've talked about it before as like a fun, like, see how long we can talk about celebration on the show. Like if we could do an entire episode on it. But I think I mentioned at one point that this is like my favorite seasonal beer, and there's nothing really seasonal in the flavor. Like it's not like a spiced beer for winter or fall or anything like that. It's an IPA, and it's just a really damn good IPA that somehow just makes me think of the the holiday season.
That reminds me. One time go ahead, Kevin.
No, Tim, please.
I was gonna say that reminds me of a Untapped review of a beer I saw once that said it wasn't Christmassy enough. And I was and I was like, what does that even mean? Like, did you want to be farting candy canes and elves? Like, what does that mean?
Well,
I mean, it probably was not a review of Anchor Christmas, because I feel like that was like the most Christmas tree tasting beer I've ever had.
I think it's a perfect example, though, of the fact that we overthink these seasonal beers and having to like draw off of these same tired flavors. I'm just as guilty as anyone for doing it, right? I have a beer coming out called Fig Eterno, which is a fig version of my double, which I think is delicious, and we're doing it in cans for the first time. But we overthink. It's like we overthink having. Oh, you have to stouts in the winter. Why? You have to do this, and why? No, you can have things whenever you want to have them if they're really, really good. And also you get really lucky, because that's what a lot of this comes down to too, and having good distribution networks and, things of that nature. Uh, you can put out a beer anytime, because at the end of the day, as I always say, our houses stay the same temperature year round for the most part, right? You're most people are not sitting there going, well, it's 50 degrees outside, so now I wear a parka indoors at all times, right? Like you're still drinking a cold beer out of the fridge, whether it's a frickin' stout or it's a lager. So acting like those things are seasonal is just preposterous to me.
And that is our weekly segment of Kevin Makes Sense.
That's not weekly. That's don't lie to our guests.
Sorry,
about it.
bi-weekly.
Yes, for our fans.
Bi-weekly.
Yeah, bi-weekly. Maybe.
And now he's done making sense for the rest of the pod.
All
I
right,
promise.
let's get into the
That's
stupid.
a guarantee.
All right, so we wanted to touch on some news items again for this show. Every month or two, we need to talk about news, because stuff is moving all the time in the beverage world. So a couple quick points. The first one I want to bring up actually broke today when we're recording this, and that is that the Siebel Institute, a big name in brewing schools, based in Chicago, are moving their operation out of the country to Montreal, because they say that they've been having issues with international students wanting to come or being able to come and participate and go to schooling there. So they're moving the stuff to Canada. I mean, I would say in the US, like Siebel and UC Davis are like the 1A, 1B of brewing schools, like the
Yeah.
top tier. So for one of them to just pretty much say we're leaving, I think that's a pretty big deal.
I,
Tim?
I mean,
Yeah, it
pretty big.
yeah, it is. I mean, I don't. Um, it's interesting the idea that they're having a hard time getting international students in. I wonder what that reciprocity now looks like. Will there be less Americans going to Canada for that program? Um, uh, not that Canada makes it difficult to get into the country, but it does seem like it's not just big news, but it's certainly a loss for the American beer industry.
Yeah, something you said in there may raises a question to me is I wonder what their enrollment is like for international verse
Yeah.
American students. I mean, I know Joel went to like a Siebel accelerated course a number of years ago, and I remember him talking about there being like a number of like Chinese students there for the course. I don't recall what like the the ratio was. But yeah, if they're looking at like classes that are more international than American, maybe it makes more sense for them in that fact they're like, okay, we're going to lose the Americans, but they were our minority in these classes anyway. So maybe it'll work out for them that way. Or maybe they're
Yeah.
hoping for getting more Canadian uh, in there too. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there are a number of I I would wager to say that there's probably a larger international student population due to the fact that I think the international student population probably values that knowledge and experience and that education. Where I feel like a lot of people that even people that go to an accelerated course like that might just be sent by their brewery that they already work at, and a number of brewers who have not done any type of brewing education in the United States. I think maybe I wonder if maybe just the American students are valuing it as much.
that's a good point. Yeah. I think that a big thing about American craft brewing is kind of learning on the job
Mhm.
for a lot of people.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, Kevin's pretty much a learn on the job type of guy. I
Oh yeah.
am too. So, I, Tim, you didn't go to any.
I did. I
Uh,
did. I did the American Brewers Guild Intensive Brewing
oh, okay.
Science and Engineering. Yeah, I did that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, was
Yeah.
that before you got into brewing, or was that a thing like during it that your employer sent you?
So it was, it happened at the same time. So I was,
Okay.
I was, beer tending and was at a beer festival with two of the owners. And I was talking about how much I hated my corporate job. And they're like, well, you know what you should do? You should come and back and start brewing and do the American Brewers Guild program. Because there were a number of people that had gone through that place that had done that same program. And a lot of people I know, uh, Derek Allmendinger, my old boss, Michael Wagner, that used to be at Steel Toe, Andy Ruland at Bad Weather. A lot of these people had already done that program as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't think that there's a whole lot that we need to really spend time on this, but I just thought that that was pretty big news, especially when it comes to like the brewing educational side of brewing, like learning how to brew right. Um, so it seems,
I think it's one of the kind of like the hidden things that you, with having more and more difficulties, maybe getting international students in because of the political landscape and things of that nature. I mean, when you are moving things out of this country because of difficulties in making those programs successful, that what we're talking about is not going to end up on cable news, right? And it's relatively a small thing, but I think it's one of those bellwethers of what's going on in the international community. And overall, we want to have more brewing talent coming here and bringing their traditions and things that they've learned, and then maybe sticking around and finding jobs here in the U.S. And if that's not going to happen, it's a bad thing for our industry. It's a bad thing, for our status in the beer community all over the world.
Yeah. The another big thing from the brewing world that has dropped in the last few days is the news of Rogue out of Oregon just closing up shop. The news came out that they had closed their production brewery, all their tap rooms, and they owe a lot of money to their landlords in Newport, Oregon, where the brewery is at, and owe a lot of money to banks for loans. Like this one is, you know, it's tough for me because I would be lying if I didn't say that Rogue was a very important part of me initially getting into beer. Like Dead Guy was one of the first craft beers that I had that I was like, "Oh, wow, this tastes different." And so many beers from that initial portfolio were so good, like Mocha Stout and Shakespeare Stout, or Mocha Porter and Shakespeare Stout, and uh, so many great things that they made
Hazelnut
over there.
brown.
Oh yeah, the Nut Brown, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were probably at the forefront of weird beers as well. Like they made their fair share of strange, oddball ingredient beers. And then later on, stuff about their work culture started coming out that really irked me. And I just refused to drink their beers anymore. I mean, they were still a top 50 craft brewery in production size at the time of their closing. So for them to just up and close shop out of nowhere is a pretty big deal, I would say, to beer.
It's huge.
Yeah, I mean,
that
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
but 37 years old. I mean, that's a big deal.
It's a lifetime in brewing.
It's probably multiple lifetimes in brewing with how short brewery lives are anymore.
No, it's a massive thing. I mean, their market share, and it's really tough for any individual unless you're like flying all over the country and seeing, or you're really tapped into the numbers like Mike is talking about. But Rogue used to be everywhere in South Florida. If you walked into a craft beer bar, you found a Rogue beer. If you walk into a craft beer bar, you are unlikely to find a Rogue beer. Period. You might find 2 or 3 SKUs on a shelf at a Total Wine and More, and that's probably about it. I don't see Dead Guy at ABC. I don't see Dead Guy at Independence, really. I probably public set. You probably still see Dead Guy, but they used to be everywhere. I mean, the beer industry was lousy with Rogue beers, and they were the beers in the 22-ounce bombers that everyone brought to the beer meetups and said, "Oh, look at this new funky beer from Rogue Brewing." And I was just on their website and looking at their lineup, and it's so interesting. I know this is not new. We've seen this with Dogfish Head. We've seen this with anyone who's been around for any appreciable amount of time. But you go from having all these styles available and all these seasonals and all these sought after beers to like 5 brands, 4 brands, and it's the only thing they have out there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It really does cut down on variety, but it does go to show you that a lot of the things that put these breweries on the map for a lot of the people in the beer culture were not sustainable. And I still see smaller breweries like myself still going, we've got to have that new can release of all this these beers with these crazy styles, and we've got to have them every single month, or else we're not going to survive. And you look at a brewery like this, who, they whittle away, and eventually lost all their market share, couldn't pay their bills, and even though they're a legacy brewery, they're gone with the snap of a finger.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that was shocking to me was how sudden it was. So as much as we could all see the decline, and Beervana had a really great article, and it had a graph in there showing how 4 years ago they were like 30 and now they're 50, and it's not because other people eclipsed them; it's because their production fell off. So you could certainly see something coming, but just how it wasn't like oh, you know what, we're gonna be wrapping up operations in the future, or we're gonna be paring back. It just went from national brand to nothing. And I think that to me was probably my biggest shock. Is you hear about some of these other ones that we've talked about recently and how they've had some struggles, and 21A, you kind of heard some of these stories, but to literally just be like, nope, one day we're open, next day we are nothing whatsoever. It's kind of catastrophic.
Yeah, you normally see a lot more scale back first, like pulling out of a bunch of states, maybe closing a tap room here and there, because I feel like they had a lot of restaurant. I don't know how many locations they had, but they had a few locations, and like you see that stuff happening first, and not everything's done, doors are locked, no one can get in, like of that scale. Yeah, it's very not typical.
Well, they were super aggressive, right? I mean, there was a rogue tap room in Orlando. I mean,
Oh, there was? I didn't know that.
there are a bar or something. I don't know if they didn't produce any beer on site or anything, but they had
It wasn't really officiated. Technically, they had just gone rogue. So,
but like they were very aggressive in putting like different places to sell their beer in different markets, and they also, I'm looking at their website again, they did the canned cocktail, they did CBD drinks, they did spirits, they diversified in all the ways that everyone's like, well, you got to diversify because people are drinking less of so you have to do da da da. And it just goes to show you that that's not a guarantee of success in any way, shape, or form. You still have to have good marketing. You still have to be able to be successful in these new categories that you may have no experience in, and brands are established. And I'm all for, and we've talked about it before, and Barrel of Monks is working on new things all the time, and trying to find different revenue streams. But looking at this at their website and what they've tried to do, it's like, oh man, maybe we should just stick to beer and I don't know, start bribing people. I don't know what the right move is, but like expansion didn't seem to work very well for them, and reducing their SKUs didn't work well enough for them, and expanding their different categories that they offer didn't work well for them. So, fuck.
well, they were opening up brew pubs as recently as like 6 months ago. Like,
Oh wow.
like they opened up a new one just like this past spring. So it doesn't seem like it was hey, we're gonna try. It seems like this was a sudden catastrophic thing that happened.
Right.
When you get over leveraged and someone comes and says, "Hey, pay me now," or you don't exist.
The bills due.
Yeah, I think their back rent was somewhere close to like $500,000 that they owed to the port where they had their main brewery at. I mean, now I would be remiss if I were to not talk about the work culture that went on at Rogue. Like, for those of you who don't know, there was some pretty just shitty company culture that went on over there, and I knew a brewer who was down here in Florida, and he used to work for Rogue, and was hanging out with him one time, and I was just like, what was it like working there? And you could see like his shoulders kind of tense up, and like he looked off to the side, like from the side eye, and like just took a deep breath and was like, I liked some of the people who I worked with. And that's really all I want to get into with this. And we were drinking too. And the fact that he didn't want to talk any further about it, he's just like, I have nothing good to say and I don't want to just get into it. And I'm like, okay. But there's this infamous job posting from them for an IT position from many years ago. Like I don't want to, I watched the entire thing, but it's a bit much to read this word for word. But pretty much saying you're going to be doing everything IT related at every location that we have. This is not a 50,000 K position. If you need that kind of money, don't apply here. We want hardcore unemployables. You we do not plan, budget, forecast, or waste time on getting bigger. We only want to get better. Um, Following banned words: great, excited, end of day, execute, throw down. There's just a whole list of just crazy words that like how do you get through working without saying some of these? And it's just bonkers crazy. And to hear like, oh, they had a shitty work culture over there and a bunch of people who thought that they're better than everyone else. Like even old punk rock me, like who doesn't exist a whole lot anymore, like thinks that this is fucking pathetic. Like to put out something like this. This doesn't make you cool or edgy. This makes you a fucking asshole to write something like this.
I
Well,
mean,
you
at
know,
least they
there.
put it
So
out there. I mean, if you're the kind of person who wants to answer that job posting, then you're a certain kind of person. So
Yeah.
it's better than concealing it and then being shitty when you get there. I mean, that's one benefit to that. Tim?
So I say one of their owners, famously was an
A Nike
attorney.
exec.
Yeah, an attorney who got fired from Nike for rubbing people the wrong way. So he was all about marketing, right? He said several times, "We got this. We didn't know what we were doing with beer. We didn't know anything about beer, but we knew marketing." And B, yeah, I mean, he was an attorney who got fired for rubbing people the wrong way. So it does not necessarily surprise me that he would have a certain amount of hubris that would lead to a culture where that happens.
One thing the first thing I thought about when when I think, was it Mike? Did you share this or did Tim share this? I can't remember
I
who
think
shared
Tim
that
put it
on the
across in our text. Yeah.
text thread. But it's funny because like you, Rogue was a big part of my initial beer journey, and there are beers from them that I really, really enjoyed. You mentioned some of them. There are also beers that were just fine, right? Like Shakespeare Stout was a fine beer. Nothing wrong with it. It wasn't gonna blow the doors off the place. I, Unfortunately, I went in a negative place, and they made a lot of beers over the years, especially in their experimental phase, that were not very good, in my opinion. A lot of
Oh
things
yeah.
that people would bring to a
Oh, they could.
to
The
oh
voodoo donut. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just terrible. But there was so many of those beers that someone would bring, and there was so much that was mediocre to bad. And I was going through a list of like defunct beers of theirs and picking out some real gems. I mean, beers that I would go to right now and go, man, if I had access to this, I'd love to drink it. But so much more of the mediocre to bad. And there are those breweries, and we talk about Sierra Nevada as one of them. And I was thinking about other breweries that I really enjoy. Frontier, uh, just one of the ones that just came to mind. That like, it makes something I'm probably gonna like it. right? Like if I see it on the shelf and they took the time and energy to put this beer on the shelf, I'm going to enjoy that beer. And it got to a point with them where I did not feel that way anymore,
Yeah.
where it was more of a gamble. Like, oh, okay, okay, I can go back to this one or these two, or yeah, oh, you got Dead Guy? Yeah, is it fresh? Okay, I'll have a Dead Guy. But I, I'm not sure. I'm not saying that that's like that started the downfall, because that was 20 some years ago, right? I mean, this is more of a modern kind of thing, but it is kind of a shame that one of the first things I thought of when this happened was, yeah, they made some pretty crappy beer that I had years ago, and it really didn't stand out to me or really seem in some ways competent for some of the styles.
Well, you know what also I think contributed to that is that they famously repackaged same beer for like they would put the American ale as the American ale. They would also have it in like a usually some tie-in with something like maybe a local place out there or a tie-in with some like like they did a lot of collaborations with other businesses. The Voodoo Donut thing. They did a sriracha beer that they teamed up with the company that makes sriracha. One of my favorite beers was their Captain Sig's Northwest red ale. It was a hoppy red ale that was like around 7%, that they did with the Deadliest Catch, like one of the guys from Deadliest Catch. But they repackaged these things when like maybe a new endorsement came around or another collaboration expired. They just put it in a different package, and sometimes it was a pretty bad beer. That Nut Brown Ale, they did Morimoto's Nut Brown Ale, same beer, just repackaged into a different format with a different face on it. They did a lot of that, and I think that when they would take one of their bad beers and do that with it, it makes you think like, oh, they're putting out a bunch of bad beers when it really like maybe they're putting out like two bad beers, three bad beers, but it's been like 14 different brands.
I
Yeah.
mean, their whole kind of ethos from the jump was to not be necessarily on style, right? So they had some huge misses, right? And it was because they were one of the few that were really taking big swings, and sometimes they missed, and sometimes they hit a home run. Um, and look at the flagship, Dead Guy, Maybach, Ale Yeast, Maybach, Ale Yeast. Like literally, it was just not necessarily, uh, uh, you know, about tradition. It was about taking risks, and sometimes you get hit a home run, and other times you strike out chasing a curveball. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like they lived and died by that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their site like Kevin was, and I forgot that they like brand extension Dead Guy. Like they
Yeah.
turned it
Yep.
into like a thing like Voodoo Ranger, and they had all these different offshoot styles for it as well.
I mean, they were one of the first ones to do that, actually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
shows how much I remember.
yeah. That's what's funny to me. Like as I've gone through like Beer Advocate or whatever, and I'm reading all these things and people like their understanding of it, and I just want to be like, you are someone who came across Rogue in the last 10 years, and I'm like, that is a fraction of their lifetime, and so many of the things they were doing. I mean, they were the first ones to really start doing like the brew pub model, because they were doing this in the days of people being, or not brew pub, like
The days of brew pubs.
yeah, yes, in the days of brew pubs, they were doing just kind of the tap room only type of thing. Uh, uh, it wasn't people wanted to be brew pubs, and they were more of a, hey, we want to be just, this is a set location to drink our beer, not we're not a restaurant chain first. And so it's funny how some of the things that they were doing, I think they maybe did not get enough credit for being on the leading edge of, because other people came by and did it better. But doing it better, they were still inspired by Rogue, and I think maybe that's something where they didn't do a good enough job. From a marketing standpoint, just even talking about their legacy, I think Kevin brought up Sierra Nevada. That is a really good, solid brand. You're right. Anything that I see on a shelf, I'm probably gonna want to try, and I'm probably going to like it. But there is, whether it's direct marketing, indirect marketing, there is an understanding of like their family and their legacy and all of these types of things. And I think Rogue didn't do a good enough job kind of leaning into that.
Yeah,
it blew my mind how many people think that they're like a 10-year-old brewery or a smaller brewery, not a 37-year-old gigantic brewery.
we talk about it all the time. We talk about legacy brands here on podcasts. When I do my Old Favorite Friday videos for Barrel of Monks, I'm constantly looking for those brands that are so good and so consistent in trying to highlight their beers, because that's what it's all about. And one of the reasons I can't feature Rogue is because they don't have very many beers in the market. But I really don't think of them in that top tier and that upper echelon of those legacy brands. And in many ways, they belong there. In all those innovations that you're talking about, Tim, in how many people they turned on to craft beer and all the styles that they tried, whether they swung and missed or not, they really do. But for whatever reason, marketing, poor branding, what have you, maybe just passed them by, or maybe they just weren't quality wise in that tier. I don't know. I'm sure there's someone listening to this that's saying, "Oh, you're freaking nuts. They hit it out of the park 80% of the time, and so many of these beers I wish I could get, Santa's Little Helper or whatever beer that you really love, that I was just kind of like, meh, okay, fine." But I think there will be a brewery that, looking back, you will look at like the top selling beers over a 37-year period in the craft space and go, holy shit, this brewery was really important and really popular. And as you guys have both pointed out, like just disappearing one day is a bizarre end to a brewery with that holds that esteem in the American craft beer scene.
Quick correction. It was Santa's Private Reserve. Santa's Little Helper was port. I didn't even have to look that one up. I did know that. But yeah, I mean, you're right, Kevin. Like they deserve some credit for doing a lot and turning a lot of people on to this that we're in and enjoying and all of that. Obviously mistakes were made or to have gotten them to the point to where it's all off at one time. But yeah, I thought that was probably one of the most shocking closures since probably Anchor.
I mean, I'd say so.
For big brands.
I'd argue for me it was bigger than Anchor. I think Anchor certainly known longer, probably a little bit more of a pioneer. But I think
there was a known closing date for Anchor.
There was a known, there was a known closing date for Anchor, and I think the writing had been on the wall for a lot longer with Anchor. I was still seeing Rogue. I was not seeing Anchor anywhere. Like their distribution footprint had drastically shrunk, and they never were distributing nearly as many brands all over the country like Rogue was. You know what I mean? They were still more, a little more niche, I guess. So to me, this feels like even bigger news. But obviously, Anchor just. Anytime someone who's been at it a really long time closes up shop, it seems shocking. But when it happens, like it's like being this band that has been around forever. Maybe you kind of forgot that they're still a band, but then you hear they broke up one day, and then you're surprised, even though you honestly didn't see them on tour in years, and you didn't know they were still putting out albums, but it's still kind of a surprise.
You mean Steely Dan broke up?
Steely
Well,
Dan isn't just one guy.
so I think it just, I mean, it is to show us this market, right? This is the industry is always going to change. It's always going to evolve, right? There's
No.
pretending like the market that we were in 1980 is the market we are now, or 1990 or 2010. But we keep talking about this, and I was touching on the expansion that they were doing into different cocktail and different beverage categories, probably to try to stay afloat because they probably saw the writing on the wall. This might be sudden for us. This might not have been as sudden for them, right? Well, they might not have let that on or what have you. And I know there's probably some aspect that was thrust on, different members of the company that might not have seen it coming. But when you do that kind of diversification and trying to get into different beverages, there's usually a reason for it. And uh, we're just in a really, really tough time. And talking to people in the industry and seeing large breweries down 16%, 18%, even small breweries being down 18%. And you wonder how long and how sustainable smaller brands are, larger brands are. And then they want to get into different spaces, and they want to get into THC spaces, which is one of the biggest potentials for everybody. Because as my partner always says, Keith, people are going to want to get altered. And if they're going to stop drinking alcohol, they're going to get into this space. And we've talked about it a bunch. Obviously, Rogue was getting into CBD. I don't see any THC drinks there for them, but some big news comes in there and really cuts off that big pivot space that a lot of breweries want to do. And what are people going to do with this?
Yeah. Oh shit. I just minimized the window that I had open. Yeah. As of November 12th, a bill was signed into law that is going to make hemp-derived THC and all THC type of products illegal above the limit of 0.4 milligrams total THC per container. And it can be synthetic or hemp derived. As someone who used to make THC beverages, that is a very, very, very small amount, right?
That is completely non-existent. A lot of places like to start off with 3 milligrams is kind of their entry level place, and that's per serving. That's not per package, right? In Minnesota,
Yeah.
uh, what are we? Are we 50 per package? But you typically see a lot of like 5 and 10s are really common, but 3 is like a really good kind of intro thing. And so what'd you say, 0.3, 0.4?
4, yeah.
0.4, yeah. That's that's meaningless, right? That's the equivalent of saying you can go ahead and make beer, but it can't be more than 1%. You know what I mean? Like it's oh well, no, you don't have to make non-alcoholic beer. You can make alcoholic beer. Just it'll take you 3,000 beers to get drunk. Uh, and certainly for the state that so Minnesota was basically the first state to exploit the loophole, right? The loophole came in through the farm bill that uh, uh freaking Mitch McConnell, who literally led the charge to close the loophole, is the one who opened the loophole with this bad drafting in the first place. And all of our representatives do a very good, diligent job of reading legislation before voting on it, in no way, shape, or form. And this is going to be catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Minnesota is one of the biggest makers of these types of drinks out there.
Oh, yeah.
So many brands are based out of Minnesota, and it's I've seen so many people from the brewing world. Actually, one of your senators was on social media today, like trying to find a way to make this not be a collapse of an industry in your state. And like, because this could be a collapse of an industry and many, many people losing their jobs when this goes into effect on November 12th of next year.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, it's huge because not only do you have breweries that were really relying this on THC to help them diversify their portfolio, as Kevin was talking about, but you also have a lot of these brands. Before that even was even a glint in the eye during the government shutdown, because who would have thought that the government shutdown, it had nothing to do with THC. So the fact that it was included in reopening the government is batshit insane. But I was having beers with him. He owns a THC company, and he and I were just kind of bullshitting growth strategies, marketing strategies, things like that. And uh, I can't even imagine what he's thinking right now.
well, and you have farmers all over the country, right? That was a big thing in Kentucky. Was you have a lot of farmers making and growing hemp, and selling it, or whatever the processing goes into to making these beverages. Listen, at the end of the day, I was shocked that these things just showed up on the shelf one day. I mean, I was on this show drinking one of them, getting stoned, and not understanding that this was a thing that was available. And I think that what ended up happening is, you have so many conservative people in politics, and you have McConnell, the things that he said about how, like, this stuff was more potent than street drugs, and people, the batshit conspiracy theory nonsense, right? Obviously led to the freak out of people wanting to shut down this industry. And then you also have just the baseline conservative nature of, like, a state like Florida that will not that had the opportunity to have the legalization of recreational marijuana, and we decided not to do it. So there is not a big impetus for the masses, whether there is or not in the political sphere. There is not a big impetus to make something like this happen. And then you throw in on top of it the lack of regulation, which scares the shit out of people. By the way, scaring the shit out of people who hate regulation and say the government shouldn't be regulating things are the ones that said we need more regulation on this, which is just beautiful. I love seeing that hypocrisy just in action. Uh, the one silver lining for this, and I know I'm kind of all over the place, but we are developing a THC drink. We've been doing it for quite a while. I ordered labels recently for the first package product that's going to be sold in our tap room. The one silver lining here is that there's a year to find some way to add regulations and do things to let parts of this industry survive, because it is an engine for economic growth. It does provide jobs. There is a market for it. They do pay taxes, and it will be a boon and a good thing for the economy. And it is, I still think, I haven't looked at the research myself, but I do think it's better than drinking a beer in a lot of ways. I do think the intoxicating effects of THC is overall better than alcohol. I could be wrong on that. Please don't take that as a suggestion. I'm not a doctor, but I think there's some benefits to having this. And I think that there could be a window of time to make something positive happen in this space. The only issue, and then I'll shut it the fuck up so you guys can talk. The only issue is that what they'll most likely do is make it very expensive to make this and shut out all the small producers. So we end up with a $25 six pack of THC margarita beverage sold by Budweiser. And that'll be it. Still good for the consumer, but bad for small business.
I mean,
Yeah, that,
yeah, I was on this podcast a few episodes ago, kind of predicting that was going to happen, even without the government stepping in, frankly, just because of how difficult
I
it
feel like that
is.
was longer ago than a few episodes. Like you've been saying is, I think for like a year
Oh,
that like
oh,
it's going to happen. Like something's gonna happen that they're gonna be like,
I, I've been beating this drum. I remember 2, 3 years ago when it started happening, me saying to people, breweries, well, should we get into THC? And I said, yeah, get in now and then get out because this is not going to last forever. And not because I thought it was going to, be the fad that was going to die, but just because, it's so hard to become a differentiator. Right? And it's so easy to become an imitator. And because we saw it happen with seltzer, not because the seltzer fad died, just because, uh, at the end of the day, people realized, you know, uh, it's it's flavored water. It's not like it's all, it's a completely different type of beverage and a different type of experience. Um, so yeah, I think that was going to happen, regardless. If anything, the only thing that had stopped it so far was the fact that it was still kind of under the radar, and the Biden administration had basically essentially decriminalized marijuana, not by saying no, not making it legal, but we're not going to spend our resources uh, targeting marijuana, THC, anything like that. Uh, and so it's so weird to me how much the culture was shifting and how much we've seen that. So again, I've been talking to this THC owner, how the demographic for THC beverages has been uh, fairly old. A lot of boomers, a lot of people who haven't touched THC in 30 years are the primary consumers of this beverage. And so you really saw kind of the tide turning, and that stigma being lifted around all of these things to the point where it became very socially acceptable. Um, and so it's so weird to have it turn so harshly. And I think the one saving grace is the public opinion, because where I would disagree with you, uh, Kevin, is that I do think that there is a large enough public sentiment that the talking heads that are the conservatives that are against it aren't the same thing as the conservatives that are using THC in their own time. I think there's enough public swell that we will see some sort of change before that year is up. But
I'm not saying I don't think it will happen. I do think it's
yeah,
kind of likely. I'm just worried overall because it's just this kind of Pollyanna approach to oh no, poor me oh my, all the kids are going to get hooked on this stuff. It, we've seen this with states that have decriminalized marijuana and sold it recreationally. we're and I could be proven wrong on this. Someone might say, "Oh no, you're completely wrong, Kevin. Here's the statistics. It's ruining society." I don't know, but it does not seem to do that in the states that have allowed recreational marijuana. I don't think the world is going to shit because of it, and I think that this is still a holdover from the propaganda videos of the 60s and 70s and reefer madness. We're still
see,
fighting this idea.
no, see, and that's where I'm disagreeing with you. Is I don't think that's what this is, because I don't think it's the constituents. I think it is a handful of specific legislators that want to cater to Trump, who is a notorious teetotaler, a notorious critic of marijuana. I think if they talk to their own constituents, I think there's a lot more public. I think there are a lot of conservatives that are pro marijuana now that there weren't even 5 years ago. I don't believe that this is the reefer. I literally think it's a bunch. It's a handful of stupid politicians that are not listening to their own constituents. I don't.
hey,
Yeah, I think public sentiment is probably a lot stronger for it.
I'm kind of with you on this, Tim, because like you can look at other things as well, like states, very conservative states that passed like abortion rights amendments in their states, like Missouri, like a
Yeah.
very deeply red state, that were like, no, we're on the side of this. Like, I do think that there is something to what you said with the talking heads are going to say the talking points, but do the people that they represent really believe in all of those things? Yes, they probably believe in maybe a majority of what those people are spouting off about. But I mean, there are some sensitive subjects that we've seen that people on both sides do agree on. And I think that pot could really be one of those things.
This
So
is the
I'm
classic.
hoping that.
This is the classic example of me agreeing with both of you and you guys thinking I'm disagreeing with you. I'm saying that the propaganda that is leading to people trying to get these things recriminalized is coming from a select group of people that are most not likely not representing the will of the people, but it's still this functional narrative that they're operating under that they think will make them more popular, or they think that they have to go down that road or else they're going to lose the radical 30% of their voters that will turn on them if they go down this road. No matter where you go with this conversation, there's going to be a minority of vocal critics, right? Even if 60% of the people are out there and say, we want this, and 20% of the people are like, I don't really give a shit, but I probably say no. The 20% that are like, this is the devil and it will kill you, they're the loudest motherfuckers on the block. And I still think that politicians, unfortunately, they answer to the loudest people. So I think we're agreeing here, but apparently Tim is still shaking his head.
I still disagree. I think there is a very vocal majority. I don't think that they're listening to those voices. I don't think they're listening to any voices. That's my point. My point is
Okay.
I don't think that this is even a propaganda thing. I think they're disguising it as propaganda. I don't
Okay.
think it has to do with a single percentage of their constituency that they're listening to. I don't, whether they're large or small or loud or silent. I think this has nothing to do with constituents at all. That is
Okay.
my point. Pro or against. Because I think really it's them trying to tell their constituents, not them listening to a vocal minority. Because in my state, overwhelmingly the loudest voices are pro. We don't really have anybody who is anti-marijuana in this state. And I know
Well,
the
of course
Keith
you
Ellison
do.
thing.
Of course you do. I mean,
but
you have
but but well, no. First of all, if you so the Keith Ellison thing, if you go back and look at what he was doing, he was protecting the state THC business. He was actually saying, I want this business. I just want there to be more regulation because now all of these wild cards are coming in here and doing God knows what. It was from a consumer protection standpoint, but he was not trying to kill it. It was two poorly written headlines that really screwed that up. Because one headline gets picked up by 17 news services. It looks like that. But in this state, if you go around, you're not hearing the loudest voices. Like we said, Minnesota is kind of a vanguard for THC seltzer, and I've seen Minnesota business person after Minnesota business person being interviewed on the national news, not the local news. The Brewers Guild is behind this, consumer support. We have been like all over the states. We've been voting for and opening up dispensaries. It hasn't been that. I don't think anyone here is listening to a constituent. I think it literally only has to do with political machinations within DC, not the vocal minority or majority or whatever. I think it's 0% constituent driven.
okay.
Yeah. But I was just looking up when you guys passed recreational, 71%.
Yeah,
That's a pretty damn good number.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 71%. And the ones that were against weren't vocal about it. There was no anti-weed campaign. Zero. It was, I don't think you should do that. But it was. Name any other political issue where you can have voting for something where there is not a large contingent against it that is actually actively doing that. There was zero. I saw zero anti-weed PSAs in my
Well,
state.
maybe I'm just biased because in my state, I heard tons of anti-legalization of marijuana PSAs, and we couldn't pass it because we didn't have the votes. So I think once again
Well,
we come down to, you know,
we're,
perceptions based on our own individual realities.
we're also a dumb state that
Well, of
requires
course.
all amendments to reach 60% as opposed to simple majority. And something that we voted on to add that only required a simple majority to make. But yeah, we did have
There,
a majority.
but there was a majority, but still, I heard tons of anti. I mean, I
Oh,
listen to a
yes,
lot of
there
podcasts.
certainly was.
They were all over the place. They were on Google ads. They were all over YouTube ads. There was a vocal group that were people that were trying to get this not to happen in Florida. And yes, a majority voted for it, but a lot of people pushed back on it. But listen, this is an important understanding that we have, right? And I said this a second ago, but I'll rephrase it a little bit, is that like it's really easy to understand our own like dichotomy as being the norm, right? And whether or not that is consistent around all 50 states or all throughout the country, it's just not, right? Like what people are experiencing here in Florida is different than Oklahoma, it's different than California, it's different than Minnesota. So uh, there's a lot of individual dynamics that go into the senators making votes, and I see no way forward in Florida for any of this to happen. With DeSantis and the Republicans controlling the House in Florida, they are never going to let the hemp derived THC get a foothold if it's up to them. And
So
it is going against the will of the people. I think what did we get? Like was it 55 or 56% that we
It was
got
somewhere
here?
around there, yeah.
It's the will of the people by a majority, but they're never going to let it happen if it's up to them.
yeah, well, and here's where I'm going to push back. So we've recently seen national retailers start to carry THC beverages. I think once you get the Walmart crowd, it's all over, and every politician is going to change their mind. Like literally, national retailers, once they started getting involved in this, and not Total Wine, but literally national retailers, Target started selling THC beverages. Once you get these national retailers involved, I think I mean, among all the other countless things that people were against it before they were for it, they had oh, my eyes were opened by corporate donations, and I think that to me is where why I believe that any state would see this happen is the second retailers start pushing back. Right now, retailers are going to be afraid because even if it is locally allowed and not prosecuted on a federal level, this is going to fuck me up with the IRS, right?
That kind of
So
that kind of to what Kevin said a while back is like we might end up being like it's going to be allowed, but it's going to be so highly like prohibitive to small businesses that it's going to be just the big guys. Like when you sent us like a link to a bunch of like corporations that were backing the banning of this, like two stuck out to me, and that was like Coca-Cola and Nestle. Like here are
yeah,
beverage companies that you would think would want to be getting in on this as opposed to wanting to ban it. Uh, and this sort of like ban and then hyper restriction on it opens up for big companies who have the lobbying, who have the lawyers, the ability to coat pockets and turn the people in Congress, the politicians' minds to being on it, because they're like, okay, yeah, oh, Coca-Cola wants to do it. Yeah. They've been doing this for a long time. They understand. They're going to do things the right way. So it's going to be safe and it's going to be right. So like I see it both ways there. Like you're absolutely right, Tim, that it's going to take all it takes is the mainstream like companies to really buy into it to change the politicians' minds. And Kevin's also right. What he said earlier is like it's going to be the big companies who run the show.
Sure, but to me, this is the exact same arguments that happened in Prohibition, and here we are. How many years after the end of Prohibition, talking about small, local, not big business craft breweries, right? Like I think that everything that I'm hearing about THC is everything that was said about Prohibition, and it was the big guys who ended Prohibition. It wasn't mom and pops that ended Prohibition. Prohibition didn't end because we suddenly uh, came to face our hypocrisy on this being a mortal sin. It was because large corporations benefited from this, and we could tax the hell out of it. But didn't make it impossible for little guys to still have a seat at the table. Sure, Budweiser ran and still runs the show, but it didn't push out the little guys entirely, and there was still space for there to be little guys. It changed the landscape for 40, 50 years, but there
Which
was
is
still space for them to
significant.
come in. Yeah, I know, but my point, but my point is there still became this cottage industry that became a pretty significant industry since the 1980s, right? That it didn't. It's going to be a pendulum, right? It might get to a point where the big guys make it, and it's only the big guys. But there's going to be a way for those little guys to get back in.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be like it just erases any opportunity for anyone else. I'm what any business is looking at is they're looking at trying to find the lightning in a bottle that's going to change their fortunes, right? You're going to be the brand that gets on the store shelves and you're going to capture a market share that is meaningful, and it's going to allow you to change your production and your plans and gives you a 25-30% growth next year because of these new brands that are really getting a foothold at least locally, if not nationally or regionally. I should say more regional than national for most small brands. But um, I think what I'm saying is that a lot of people saw this space as that right now, and they're saying, "Oh, we could take over. We could be the next big brand. We could build a Budweiser-ish brand off of this by being an early adopter, by getting there on the ground floor, by having great branding and a good product." And I think what this is showing, and the path forward is probably showing all of us, is that what will most likely end up happening is it will open the door for large corporations to monopolize this business and reduce the potential opportunities for breweries like myself to be and also ran like, oh yeah, we introduced a new brand. And it's on the shelf at 7 different locations and it's doing okay. Something good for us, and we're still going to pursue it and we can grow from it. But it's not going to be that kind of like windfall lottery ticket that I think a lot of people thought they were going to get. And whether or
Yeah,
not that was
and
that might have been ridiculous. It might have been a dream in the first place. It might have been unrealistic, but this kind of closes that window and makes that even more unrealistic potentially.
yeah, well, yeah, I don't think it was ever realistic. Again, I was the one saying 3 years ago, "Get in while the getting's good," type of thing. I just, I, I don't know how many times this podcast you guys are going to make me out to be this gigantic right wing capitalist. Um, but
I don't recall doing that.
What are
no,
you
no, no, no,
talking
no, because
about?
no. Hold on, let me. Maybe I can finish my thought because sometimes I say things that make me sound like I say it. This is my defense of big business, right? Um, Big business gets shit done. Uh, when I was in craft brewing and everyone wanted me to rip on uh, Budweiser and Miller and Coors, I said we would not exist without them, right? Uh, I go to Raw Malting down the road and look at their malting operations and I go, "Yep, that's malt." Budweiser sends PhD scientists to make sure raw malting is doing the right things. I, little guy, get good malt because Budweiser exists. And I think a lot of times, so many little small businesses don't appreciate that fact, right? And so for me, when I saw this coming down the road of get in while the getting's good, but you're silly if you think you're going to be the next uh whatever, Velcro or whatever. To me, that was a silly way to think from the get-go. Was that's not what this is. This is a new industry to get in on and get your expertise on, but I did not ever see anyone being the little guy who goes big. But I mean, that's like trying to start up a car company now or a cell phone company now. Yeah, oh yeah, Mint Mobile came around. Yeah, Mint Mobile came around from other large companies that already exist. These aren't, and they're relying on the large infrastructure that was already built, right? Large companies build infrastructure. Large companies
So
provide opportunities.
a millionaire, like hugely popular actor behind them is it? Wait,
Mint
is
Mobile is
Ryan
Ryan
Reynolds
Reynolds.
behind it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But for the most part, Tim, I could not agree with more with everything you just said.
Oh, I know you are. I know you
I'm
are.
just gonna leave that
Yeah.
there because I feel like there's some, you know, there's something in the air that we're disagreeing, and like always, I
No,
feel like
no,
we're in
no,
complete
no, no.
agreement.
When no, no. When I said you guys are gonna make me, I didn't mean that you guys specifically. I was just saying that there have been so many times on here where I have said something that makes me sound like I'm
The
right wing,
royal
and
you guys.
yeah, yeah.
For
I was not
years,
blaming you guys.
for years, I have been the person saying like without like the three-tiered distribution system in Florida, so many breweries wouldn't exist because they couldn't get their beer to anybody, and been like the
Yeah.
devil's advocate for like this thing where everyone's like, "Oh, we need self-distribution," and without that, like, so I get that. I mean, I'm no I see falls of what this potentially means for this industry. And I see the opportunities of what this means for the industry. Nothing is ever one thing, really. And we always want to reduce it down. And for simplicity, I think a lot of times we might talk in absolutes that are not necessarily there. But yeah, when I see that what is going to end up being what it is, it's not even necessarily a thing. It's going to be a bad thing. It's just going to be a different thing than what I think a lot of people hoped it would be. And whether those people are producers or consumers, I just hope it happens. I know, Tim, you seem very, very uh, positive and optimistic about I think it seems from what you're saying is that in a year on November 12th, 2026, you're expecting there to still be THC beverages on the shelf. And it's going to happen because businesses are going to make it happen. I probably agree with you on that. I'm interested in what Mike thinks. What do you think, Mike?
I don't know anymore about like I mean just like the fact that this came so quickly, like from there was no talk of this, no talk of this, no talk of this. Then it's like I feel like it was 2 3 days, and all of a sudden there's like, oh, they're going to try to push this through. Like, wait, what? And then oh, it's been signed. Like, I don't know what to think anymore with how like this administration works, how it influences the right wings of state legislatures. Like, I would love to be optimistic on it and hope that like big retail can make something like this happen. But I mean, I don't know. Like this country almost seems like it wants to cut off its nose to spite its face, like on everything. So who knows? Like I want to see it stick around. I
I mean,
do.
you brought up abortion rights, right? So
Yeah.
Supreme Court shot down Roe versus Wade, and what did you see? Overwhelming states, uh, uh, red states even, enacting abortion rights legislation within their own states or amending their constitutions or things like that. Not across the board, but you saw a lot of that happen after the fact. I think what is happening at the federal level really seems to be getting countered at the state level. Uh, uh,
Yeah, very
in
true.
large part,
What?
Very
yeah.
true. Yeah.
That what? Uh, all I've seen is more and more restrictions in the vast majority of states on abortion. What? This is not a part of the beer podcast, but that's very confusing to me.
No, there's been some states who have ratified like amendments to their constitutions to make abortions like constitutional in their states. Missouri was one of the big ones that came to mind. I think Kansas, did Ohio do it too? But
Ohio has some of the most aggressive restrictions on abortions,
I
as
might
well as
be wrong on
Texas
that.
and
Like, and I
Florida.
do know that yes, there's are tons of the ones that enacted the silly like 16 and 8 week like bans, but there were ones like that did like make it uh like stand codified it. There's the word I was looking for
Yeah.
into their state constitutions. Uh, they're both on their their phones right
Yeah,
now looking at
yeah.
I just I mean, and this might just be, and this is the echo chamber of our lives. The vast majority of what has happened prior to the repeal of Roe versus Wade and what has happened since then, from the feedback that I get, is vastly negative and much more restrictive than it was prior,
well,
for what it was 5 years ago. And
I think
whether or not
what
one or
he and I
yeah.
were both talking about is when states left it up to the people
Mhm.
to vote and not enact it, like legislature pushing through laws
Yes.
like what Florida did. Like that was all legislature that pushed through the ban here. That was it 6 or 8 weeks in
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. So here's what I'm saying is NPR politics. Most states that considered abortion rights amendments approved them.
Florida was not one of them.
Yeah.
Like we did, although again we had a majority, but because we are a state that requires a 60% threshold for passing amendments like this, if we didn't hit it,
It-
I think we're also one of only like a couple states that do that because we're, Florida.
yeah.
But
In 2024, 10 states considered adding language guaranteeing abortion rights in their states' constitutions. 7 of those 10 approved them. That to
Which
me
is
feels like
great.
a positive sign. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a good thing, an objectively good thing from this one person's opinion, and I think the opinion of the three people here.
Yeah. No,
I don't know how we
absolutely.
got. I don't know
Yeah.
how we got here. After talking about
I
THC
my
beverages,
I think my point is, and what Mike was saying is that when you actually put it up to the will of the people, I think what you're finding is the will of the people is uh, a lot stronger than I think we're seeing in the media.
yeah, I
that's
mean, and
probably true.
the right of the
Oh,
people, the will of the people is constantly being stifled and constantly being told you don't matter, and like anything that can be done to make people not vote, so that those numbers of the people who want to vote yay on things goes down. But anyway, anything else you want to add on THC before we head into last calls?
No.
I think it's been a very hot button topic in beer lately. As I have said before, any brewery that was relying on THC to keep them afloat uh, has been kicking the can down the road, in my opinion. And I don't think and as much as I think THC isn't going away, I think I think too many of them saw that dream of this could be the next big thing. But it's what happens in any industry. Something gets popular for a little bit, and people now ride that trend line as if it goes off into infinity, and not realize that that trend line is you've got a limited data set.
Yeah.
And I worry that too many small businesses, because they are surviving day to day, are looking at limited data sets to make long term decisions. But you'll never grow exponentially forever. You'll never have your best years become your normal. Like even the biggest companies, we've seen too many big companies fail to the biggest department store in the world, Sears, is no longer a thing, right? Like you can't always rely on those things, and I feel like because we have such a limited data set, people saw this as this great industry, and now it's the worst thing. And if it does go through, and I am wrong, it will be catastrophic. But also, it's maybe going to be catastrophic because too many people were relying on something they shouldn't have relied on in the first place.
Yeah. All right. Let's head in the last calls. The point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related or not. The only rules is that it is uninterrupted, unopposed, and unobjected. I'm going to go ahead and start things off here because I wanted to talk about a new member of our household in the Urevich household. We recently adopted a new puppy into our home. His name is Fry. He is a 3-month-old little white dog with a black spot over one of his eyes, and he is very adorable. I wasn't super keen on getting another dog at this time of our lives, but my wife was very adamant that our dog that we already have, Nugget, needs a friend, and the boys were very much for having another dog in the house. We went to Peggy Adams Rescue in West Palm Beach, Florida. We saw a couple of dogs, and we honestly, I loved both dogs. I actually liked the other dog that we saw more, but I was outvoted. I'm absolutely fine with that because Fry is adorable. His brother's name was Bender, and they were obviously named after the characters from Futurama, but we decided to keep Fry as the name for him to go along with Nugget, our other dog. So we now have Fry and Nugget. Nugget's name was also his name from the shelter that we decided to keep. But he's a very sweet dog, and I think, is going to learn very, very, very fast. He can be pretty chill. He's a big cuddler, but has puppy energy, especially in his teeth. I have a scratch on my leg that I've been rubbing like a lot of tonight. Like I feel that scab like build up on it. But yeah, so our house of 4 humans and 1 dog is now 4 humans and 2 dogs. And if you follow me on Instagram or Blue Sky, you've probably seen the photos and the videos of him already. So if you haven't, go follow me, Mike Loves Beer, and you can see puppy stuff. I'm turning into a puppy account. So, Tim?
So I mentioned earlier that it is becoming winter, whether I like it or not, here in the Great White North. The older I get, the less I enjoy winter, and I understand why so many Minnesotans snowbird in Arizona or Florida. But there's still things I like about winter. I used to be a lot more of a snowboarder. My body can't handle snowboarding anymore. So I don't really do that nearly as much. And now I've taken a lot more to ice fishing, which is a little bit less of an impact on my joints than snowboarding. But my daughter is really, really, really excited to go ice fishing this year. Um, but one thing that I found myself going down a rabbit hole, which was probably a mistake, was YouTube videos of people building their own ice houses. So what I need everyone to do is to stop me from trying to build my own ice house. I have neither the time nor the money nor the resources to build that. But if you come up and I'm on Lake Nokomis on some shanty that I built out of old tin signs that I harvested off of the side of an old building, uh, uh, know that was done with the best of intentions, but I'm also a very, very stupid man. Um, so yeah, long story short, really excited for ice fishing season, but I also don't want the weather to bring ice fishing. So if you could find a way to localize winter only on the lakes and nowhere else in the city, science, get on that, please.
Get
I'll
on it,
work on it.
science.
I'll work on it personally. Okay. So I think, sometimes I come up with with the last call that I'm almost positive that I've talked about before. And I try to forget these episodes almost immediately after they're over. And it's not hard to try. I've had like 4 beers, so I forget this just immediately, naturally. But I think I've talked before about the history of rock and roll in 500 songs, which is a podcast that by a guy named Andrew Hickey, who is amazing. It's one of the best podcasts you can ever listen to if you're a music fan. So I've talked about that before, but there's some specifics that I want to talk about right now because I stopped listening to the show for a while, mostly because I was depressed and unhappy. And I did not want to have joy in my life because the world just seemed so painful. And I forced myself to start listening to music more and letting it be uh, forcing myself to feel joy again. So I started listening to the podcast again, and these were some of the things that I took out of the podcast that were really meaningful to me. Uh, there's tons of songs that I grew up listening to. Because they were on oldies rock radio, and I grew up in Detroit, and specifically with Motown, and many of the singers I'm going to talk about right here are connected with Motown in some way, but never really appreciated. There's nostalgia connected to these songs for me for sure, but they weren't meaningful to me. They weren't songs that I loved. They were just songs that were in the background and some artists that were in the background. And I have got a newfound appreciation for music that is older than I am. And listening to these songs with new ears is so incredible. And I find myself humming and singing these songs as if they're like earworms I just heard on the radio, or as if they're music I just found in my teens and they're, revolutionary to me. So I'm gonna give you a couple examples. Bernadette by the Four Tops, banger, absolutely fantastic. Midnight Hour by Wilson Pickett. Heard It Through the Grapevine, Marvin Gaye. I love Marvin Gaye. I always thought Heard It Through the Grapevine was this like some poppy nothing. It is an incredible piece of music. Also, Take Another Little Piece of My Heart. Obviously, Janis Joplin singing that, but it was Big Brother and the Holding Company with the band she was with at the same time. Um, Listening to that song with new ears makes me understand why people were obsessed with Janis Joplin and the entire musical movement. When I was in high school, it was a big thing to be into Janis Joplin. I didn't get it at the time. I get it now. It's taken some time, but I got along there. I also find myself just putting on albums by Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Chuck Berry, and Sly and the Family Stone, and just enjoying the music as if it's absolutely brand new to me. And I just find this to be wild and so it's just wonderful. It's wonderful to find this music that is so much cultural touchstones and so influential to all the music that we listen to these days, or all the music I listen to at least these days. And then finally, a new artist that I had never heard of before, James Carr. And this is a person who was a soul singer who many people believe to be one of the greatest soul singers of all time, who had a hit with Dark End of the Street, which I know a lot of different artists have covered over the years, but I listened to for the first time. It's absolutely incredible. And I listened to it over and over again and just getting lost in the voice, in the soul, and in the music of it. And just being like, how did I miss this for 44 years of my life? I also have to say about James Carr is that his version of These Arms of Mine is actually better, in my opinion, than Otis Redding's. And for me to say that his version is better than Otis Redding, who I adore. One of my favorite albums of all time is my Otis Redding's Greatest Hits album. That is just perfect song after perfect song. And I listen to this version and go, I think he did it better. Is just crazy to me. So what I'm saying is that I think it's very important for us to listen to modern music and appreciate it because we are so prone to nostalgia. But I also think that rediscovering music and listening to it in a different way with a different appreciation can be so rewarding and bring so much joy to our lives. Music is very important. I find myself being a little more happy when I put a little bit of music on and give myself the time to explore songs that I thought I knew, but really never listened to. And I suggest you do the same. I also suggest the History of Rock and Roll in 500 Songs. It's just amazing. Everyone that I recommend this show to, they just love it. And they text me randomly, oh my God, that episode on such and such. So do that.
Awesome. Kevin, do you want to plug Figgy, Turno, and Father Christmas?
You just did.
Perf. Tim?
No, I had something I was gonna plug and I forgot it. So I'll just plug the United We Drink podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Pods, and wherever fine podcasts are found.
Perfect. I just want. I'm going to go back to my my last call real quick, and I want to plug Peggy Adams Animal Rescue League, where
They're
we
great.
got Fry at. Kevin, you got your dog from there, right?
Flops, who we also, that was his name at the shelter, and we kept it because it fits. But they are wonderful, wonderful people at Peggy Adams. If you are anywhere around the South Florida area, go there. They care. They've got incredible employees. They are just fantastic.
Yeah. And as I am doing that, I was going through to try to see if the dog that I liked was still available there. She is not. I am so happy about that because she's absolutely a wonderful dog, and I hope that she is making some people very, very happy right now. If you live in the West Palm Beach area, please, and you're considering getting a dog or cat, they have cats there as well. Please go check out Peggy Adams. And if you want to donate, because it's the giving season, and you just want to throw them some money at an awesome animal rescue, peggyadams.org is their website. They take donations. So please go do that. Other than that, if you want to support our show, go to our website, unitedwedrink.com. Check out the Brands We Love page. It is the season, right? Check out Trade Coffee and Cookware, Athletic Brewing. You can get any beer delivered to your door by going to Athletic Brewing and check out some of the fun stuff that they brew just in house that only goes out in like their tap rooms or on their online store because they make more than just like the free wave and the stuff that you find in grocery stores. It's pretty awesome. Also, our friend Kevin and I's friend Tim is a brewer at Athletic, and he's an awesome person. So help support him. Other than that, we'll be back in a couple weeks with our final episode of the year 2025. That is the year. Yep. Sometimes I forget.
You're done well, Mike. You were just you're humming along.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to all you fine American folk. If you're Canadian, you already had your Thanksgiving. If you're not Canadian or American, this is the day that we kill turkeys and eat them. Be afraid. So we'll be back after that. Have a great time with your family, friends, and loved ones. We'll see you then. Cheers.
Cheers. I like that you assume that most of our listeners are turkeys. You said
Did I say that?
You said this is the time we kill turkeys and eat them. So be afraid.